Hello and welcome to another video in the Alphi Educational Series with Elliot Omenson and
Nathaniel Vossman.
Today we're going to talk about some really cool. It's not cool. It's actually really bad.
Yeah, it's a little more grim.
Yeah, but it's important. That's kind of what I mean, and that's what we call the widow's financial shock. What really happens when one spouse dies, and obviously we use the feminine gender for widow. Right. Yep. And that's just because statistically, I think it's 83% of the time, that's who has to suffer through what we're about to describe.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is some stuff that we've hit on briefly in other episodes, like the Social Security, but we're kind of going to dive into it more holistically and more in depth. And there might be, some carryover from previous episodes now, but this is just all inclusive on the, on the widow's shock after spouse dies, and it could be in the reverse, but it's just called widow shock because statistically much more likely.
Correct.
So we'll kind of get started on a high level. So when one spouse passes away, like what changes financially overnight?
Well, immediately an income source disappears. That is one of the Social Security payments.
Yep.
Right. Rarely do the household expenses drop much, right? It's not like all of a sudden your house payment or your taxes on the house or your insurance on the house dramatically that doesn't even go down at all.
No,
right? If you look at your grocery bill, cooking for one or cooking for two, quite often isn't.
Yeah, it's not linear at all.
Not at all. Good word usage there.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's just, these things, and then, I don't know, and I'd love for somebody to comment on this who's been down this road, right? But, you might have had a husband that did a lot of like exterior yard work. In my case, It would definitely be the woman. I'm not a big fan of manual labor. But if you were depending on your husband to care for the exterior maintenance of the home and the yard work and all that kind of stuff, or even stuff inside the home, all of a sudden now you have this expense that you got to pay for that you didn't have to pay for before.
Yeah, that's something I never even really considered, but that is true.
Yeah,
100%.
That ain't cheap.
No,
for a retired person that lives in the home to do it is a very that's actually like a positive. It's like I got something to do, right? But not actually have to hire somebody to come over and actually do the work. I don't even know what magnitude of order of higher expense to actually pay somebody versus just doing it yourself is, right?
Oh yeah, a whole lot more.
Yeah,
that compounds with the issue. That's some that you don't even really think about much, but it's true.
Yeah. So just staying in that home probably just got more expensive.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
And so kind of moving on, still within this realm, but like you said, one of the sources of income drops off. So in this case, Social Security, you pass away, you're going to lose that income. But why is that an even bigger impact than what it seems on the surface?
Well, just take, for instance, let's just say your spouse's Social Security was half. Let's say the husband was at, $4,000 a month and his spouse was at $2,000 a month. Well, she jumps into his 4, but loses her 2. Well, to lose $2,000 out of 6,000, what percentage of reduction of income is that?
It's 33%.
33%, right? And again, we already talked about how it's not like your expenses drop by 33%.
No.
Right? And in fact, they could have gone up in some ways. I'm going to bet you the expense of replacing somebody doing maintenance and repairs to the house and the yard pales in comparison to the added expense of cooking for 2.
Yeah, or buying clothes for 2.
And I mean that in reverse.
But yeah, I know what you're saying. It's because all your fixed costs stay the same, and then you might incur some more costs. You're dropping off a couple, but definitely nowhere near that 33% mark.
Yeah. And so, obviously, one person's doesn't really matter that one person's Medicare premium goes away. Well, it was getting deducted out of their Social Security. So, that's a wash, right? So I just think, I think it's more detrimental than it is. Well, obviously, it's bad to lose a loved one, but I just mean financially speaking. I think there's a bigger net negative.
Yeah, yeah, because that's the rough part about people passing away and death. It's just you got to go with that emotionally, the death of the person, but then the effects afterwards on the financial side of things doesn't help out because you really are getting less income. And kind of lead into our next question, why can that surviving spouse end up paying more taxes despite having less income?
Yeah, well, this is where the part of the name of the title of this video comes from, and this is what we call the widow's penalty, right? Just look at the tax brackets, and we'll probably post a picture.
Yeah, we will.
Married, you can have an amount of income that is in the 12% taxable income, and it's a pretty wide bandwidth.
It is very wide, yeah.
Okay, so the odds are you're in that 12. And then when you go from married filing jointly to single, the very same income is now 22% taxed. Well, that's a 10% jump in taxation, while at the same time you just lost 33% of your income.
Yeah, that's a hard one to swallow.
Yeah. So I'm no quant, but I don't know if that really equates to a 43% negative net.
But it certainly hurts.
But it's, yeah, what's happening here is these negative things are starting to stack on you.
Yeah.
Right? You've lost a Social Security payment, which is 33% of your Social Security possibly. You just got jumped into a higher tax bracket, taxing you at 10% additional taxes. You just lost somebody in your life who's actually a helpmate, most likely, that was carrying a load of maintenance and repairs that now you have to hire out for. Right? These things are starting to stack onto that person who's left alive. Right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, going along with the taxes and with some of the income, a big chunk of income that gets taxed in retirement are the RMDs.
Yeah.
So what happens to the retirement accounts and the subsequent RMDs when someone passes away?
Well, you would think that there'd be some bit of alleviation, right? Because quite often, again, we're going off statistics, law of large numbers, right? And this isn't everybody's situation. So obviously you have to talk to a licensed professional to get actual tax and investment advice. But quite often the man's older, right?
Yeah.
And the required minimum distributions are coming off of his life expectancy tables. Now he passes and all that money is going to get rolled over to his spouse and at her life expectancy tables. If she's younger, that means it's going to be a smaller percentage of that account value. But is there a scenario where this doesn't work out in her favor? Well, there could be, because what if she worked as well and also had had qualified accounts? Well, now the amount of money that is on her bracket, which would have been the same if she had got to recorded minimum distribution anyways, but now it's all her money and it's all on her life expectancy and that RMD, I don't think in this particular case it makes it worse by any means, but I don't know that it's helping out a lot.
Well, it's definitely
my point.
It's definitely not, because it might be, depending on how much younger she is, might be a smaller percentage, but
It's all the money,
and she's just getting older and older, so that's going to just keep ramping up.
Yeah,
yeah, and then at the higher tax bracket, you really end up paying quite a bit more.
Well,
tax.
yeah, and you're being taxed in the single tax bracket.
Yeah,
right? This is. Again, it's just these things are stacking.
Yeah. So that's really the worst part of it all.
Yeah.
And then kind of going beyond.
Well, and by the way, one thing we haven't mentioned yet is those RMDs are forcing, because not only is it forcing taxes on money you may not need, it's also, because Social Security is means tested, it's also showing the government that you have higher income, even if you don't need it.
Yeah.
Right? Which means they're taking more of your Social Security from you through taxation.
Yeah, that's a good point, because, depending on how much money he's passing over and depending on how much money she already had in her retirement accounts, even at the younger age, that percentage that she's having to pull out with an RMD might exceed what she needs, which doesn't sound like a bad problem necessarily, that you have more money than you need. But yeah, then it starts to affect other taxes. So not only are you paying a lot of tax on that RMD, you're bumping up into higher tax brackets, but then now your Social Security is getting taxed more, and you've already lost 33% of that, maybe
you
more.
You lost 33% of that. You got bumped into a 10% higher tax bracket, and you're being forced to liquidate these accounts that are driving the taxes in your Social Security up, possibly bumping to the full 85% being kind of taxable income.
Yeah. It's a whole lot going on.
Yeah. None of it's good.
And so, kind of like what we've talked about in previous episodes too, that's really taken away a lot of your flexibility, like with how you can manage your taxes if you're having to pull up so much from your RMDs.
Yeah.
And so kind of going, I guess, a little bit beyond just the retirement accounts, like what happens administratively to all their assets after death, like when someone dies.
All right.
So okay, go ahead.
I
was going to say other things like the joint accounts and stuff.
Yeah,
That's not just
so let's walk
retirement.
through this. Let's walk through these and pay very special attention to this, and then go make sure all yours are done correctly. So let's start with the fact that first off, a trust and will do not trump your beneficiary designation, your TOD, transfer on death, or your POD, payable on death. Okay? So I've seen this before where people had an account, they had a beneficiary on it, they get divorced, years later they get remarried. They've been married for a long time. There's this account out there in the wind. Guess whose name it still got on it?
Yep.
And guess whose trust they did with their new partner ain't having anything to do with it, right? So you've got to make sure that if you have a trust and a will, you still pay very close attention to your beneficiary designations, your transfers on death, and your payables on death. Now, you should always make sure that on all your vehicle titles, there's a TOD, and it's on the title. You should always make sure on bank accounts, it doesn't have your name and your spouse's name. If it does, that means both of you have to sign. It's very hard to do when one of you is dead.
That's good. That's a good point.
Okay. You want it to read or. Okay. You also want a payable on death on those accounts to pay to, if you don't have the or, you want, and sometimes even if you do, if both of you pass, you want it payable on death to somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. That could be your trust. That could be another person. Then on all your joint accounts, right, they'll be labeled joint. Usually there'll still be a transfer on death on a joint account. So again, if both of you pass. Then on all your qualified accounts like IRAs, Roths, there's a beneficiary designation. Okay. So we literally just went through everything from cars, bank accounts, joint accounts, and qualified accounts.
Yeah.
Am I missing any?
I think that's all the big ones. And I think it's important to bring that up because a lot of times you'll create these accounts. You might have created them way back decades ago. And, you know, like I know for myself personally, like I create an IRA and I put a beneficiary on there. But after I do that, it's not like I ever think about that ever again.
No.
And, you know, you don't really ever know when you're going to die. And then it'd be real awkward if you're married to someone, but you're, you know, previously divorced and then you die. And all of a sudden your ex-wife
gets a bunch of money.
is getting $1 million from you. That's unfortunate and
It's fortunate. It's fortunate for somebody, unfortunate for someone else.
yeah. So yeah, then your current wife has to deal with the death and then not even get that money. So that's a good point. Making sure that's all in place, and then even like those little details, like on the bank account, having the word "or" there is a big one. And I think
That is a big one.
That's like stuff that I think a majority of people don't even consider
Yeah.
for a second.
Vehicle titles and bank accounts are the two areas in which I see most people screw this up.
Yeah, yeah, because like I don't think hardly anybody really thinks about that. And I think a lot of people, especially when they're younger, aren't even thinking about the topic of death. And we are talking about death, but it doesn't have to necessarily be an elderly couple like you have in your mind. It could be someone in the 40s, could be someone in the 50s, could be younger than that.
Yeah. I mean, I've had friends die at 17, 19, 25, 32, you know.
Yeah, so like all this applies. So we're talking about Social Security. Some of these people might not even be at Social Security age. And so this doesn't just apply to people who are older.
Correct.
This applies to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so kind of moving on. So let's kind of move into the emotional side of things, because death is an emotional time, especially when it's death of someone so close. So how can the emotions lead to potential financial mistakes with that money?
Okay. I'm going to tell you one of the worst possible attitudes that I have seen, and I've literally just seen it as recently as last week. A gentleman was trying to set an appointment with us, and he had the day wrong or something, so he's trying to reschedule. And in the background, he's trying to get a date down. His wife, and I'm not picking on women, but again, statistics, law of large numbers, okay. So, yes, I'm sexist, but this is not me being sexist here. This is just statistics, okay?
Fair enough.
So his wife in the background is like, oh, I don't even want to go. Okay? Now, to her credit, she came. Was very, very closed off at first. Okay? But because I know who I'm actually planning for and it's not him, I put a lot of effort to try and break those barriers down, right? And just to paint a picture, the husband is one of the most astute and knowledgeable investors I've ever had a chance to talk to. He buys commodities. He does shorts and puts and calls, and I'm just rounding off words here. I don't even know what they mean. No, I'm kidding. But I mean, this guy is and we're talking millions of dollars.
Yeah.
That he accumulated not through working. He hadn't worked since he was 41 due to disability. He did not attain this amount of money through work. He attained it through investing. Okay? Now, he was 81, I think.
Yeah, he's older.
And she was in her 70s. Now, what do you think's going to happen when he dies? To a woman with millions and millions of dollars who fought to even come in and meet with someone. Now, why do you think he's bringing her in the first place, right? You think he doesn't realize how old he is? You don't think he can't feel himself running down?
I think that's precisely why he's there.
It's exactly why he's there. And he knows, even though he won't say it to her face, I did, right? What are you going to do when he passes? Are you going to step in and start doing all this trading? Are you going to decide in your late 70s with $10 million to your name that now's the time to go find someone you trust to walk alongside you and help you? And what are you going to pick? How are you going to pick them? By what criteria are you going to measure them? The guy that knew everything, the guy knows more about trading than I do, died. He's gone.
Yeah.
And all that wealth he accumulated, you now have, and it's now your responsibility. And you've got to figure out where the accounts are, and you got to figure out what options, like, and by the way, with this kind of training this guy does, there's going to be calls out there that she's got to deal with, and she's not going to know how to deal with it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There's a train wreck headed her way. And she didn't even want to come in and start the process of trying to meet people. And by the way, she better not just come in here.
Yeah.
They probably need to go to 10 of those meetings, right? But she didn't want to go to one.
Yeah, because that'd be a lot on our plate. And
at the worst possible time in your life.
Well, exactly, because it's not like that's the only thing you're focusing on when someone dies.
No.
The finances, you're focusing on getting through that. And there's a lot to go on there. And really, in reality, you should be doing the planning ahead of time and not just having someone there just for the death. Like, there's really a long time beforehand.
There's all sorts of stuff that should be done, right? But I was like, look, if you're not going to go investigate firms and you're not going to build a relationship now and you're not going to incorporate them into your finances now, then here's what you need to do. Sell everything to cash, move it to your bank account, and just live off of it.
Yeah.
Because that would be the app. Because one, you're never going to run out of that. So much money.
Yeah.
You're not, with her expenditures, like you ain't spending all that. Not in 10 lifetimes. So just, especially in your late 70s. So just move that shit to cash. Because this is not the time to go try and figure it all out. If you're not going to do it ahead of time, that's not the time.
Yeah, definitely not. So I think it's a good thing that he was able to talk her into it, and hopefully they do, check out other firms.
Yeah.
And like ultimately comes down, like you said, to just finding someone you trust and someone who's going to do things well for you.
Yeah, when I told them, it's like, well, I told her, like, you want to make sure that whoever is taking care of you, I would think, understands your husband's philosophy, what he was trying to accomplish, how he did things, so that somebody's there to help you carry all that forward.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of just walking into somebody you just never met before and dropping 10 million in their lap.
Yeah, because at that point, if it's after the fact, you don't really have that benefit of time on your side. Like you're having to find someone quick to deal with everything.
Yeah.
And then even then, who knows if you were properly planned in the first place for it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So kind of going off that, like how can the shock of death be mitigated with proper planning ahead of time?
Well, yeah, right. So I think if both people, and look, you both don't have to have the same level of understanding, right? In every relationship, one person kind of takes the helm and manages the household finances and all that. For me, growing up, it was my mother. So when I'm talking about, statistically speaking, this is women, I'm saying that while in my own personal life, it was not. My mom's the financially responsible one. My mom was the one that taught us how to budget money, track money, invest money, right? That was my mother. I have a lot of clients where it's all the wife, okay? They're the most organized, on the ball, whatever, right? But I'm just saying, statistically speaking, when we sit down with a couple, I'm not planning for the man. I am planning for the woman.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think I lost my train of thought. What your question was?
Well, just like the proper planning ahead of time.
Yeah. Right. So you're both not going to have the same level of understanding, but you've got to have enough of a level of understanding. You've got to know where to go to get access to the accounts, to log into the passwords. You got to know what the general overarching plan is, right? You got to know who the right people are that you together, hopefully you together as a husband and wife have chosen because you both trusted them. I saw another example that hits real close to home, so I'm not going to name any names or whatever, but I got brought in on a deal and the advisor viewed the spouse as a money-grubbing, gold-digging whatever because she'd only been in the marriage for a couple years before the husband passed. That guy, the level of disdain and disregard and disrespect that guy spoke to the spouse with, was mind-blowing to me, right? And it just highlights, like, it's got to be, like, if you're a guy and that's the way your financial advisor speaks to, now this particular couple, there's no way for them to do anything about it. But let's say I'm not sick and I'm not going to pass a cancer or something and I have time. I would want to make sure that my advisor views my spouse correctly and treats them like, hopefully I would want my advisor to talk to my spouse and I the same way I talk to people, which is, hey buddy, thanks for, whatever you've done, but I got news for you. You're going to die. We're not really here for you. Yeah. We're here for her. Right. And so you should be able to pick up on whether or not your advisor is a sexist pig that views your spouse in a negative way and doesn't communicate correctly with them, because you're going to be out of the picture and you're going to leave her in that kind of hands. Right. Like I said, sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. But yeah, I just think that you've got to make sure that you both know enough. Whichever one of you is the one in charge, the other one has to know enough. You have to have somebody that understands your overall plan and you both can trust. That'd be my two biggest things, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's something like the earlier the better. Obviously, finding an advisor that fits well for you guys. You wouldn't want to be with someone that you don't really trust. That's a big one. Yeah. I would say that's like the foundation. But
well, I want to go to something you just said, earlier the better.
Yeah.
This is one of the greatest truths of all of life. I don't care how foreign all the mumbo jumbo from the financial industry is. Just start the earlier the better, because guess what? Every time you hear it, you retain a little bit more.
Yep.
And it'll be super frustrating at first. And you might walk out. I joke that every one of my clients, they understand 90% of what I'm saying in the meeting. And inside of 5 minutes of walking out my door, they understand 5% of what I was saying.
Yep.
Right. And people all the time apologize that they have to have me repeat stuff. And I'm like, you guys, that's how people ask me what I do for a living. I say I repeat myself. Like it's all foreign terminology. It's foreign concepts. It's very few things people deal with every day. Don't try and learn it all at once. Just start now, going into meetings, being there, listening. Who cares if you get frustrated and don't understand it? Don't worry about it. Go in for another meeting.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. It's eventually going to start to click. And
yeah, and don't be afraid to ask questions, because that's what the advisor's literally there for.
Yeah.
Is to help you out.
Yeah.
And because a lot of it is foreign, like even stuff that's not really complicated, it's foreign because, that's not part of their day-to-day life like it is ours. And so to us, it might be real simple, but to the average person, like that's just not anything they deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I just heard this weekend about a job that you would never know exists. It's over in like Asian countries where people are paid to pack people into the subway. Their job is to pack more people in.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I'm going to bet you if that guy tried to explain to me the art of packing people into a subway, I'm not going to understand most of what he's talking about. It's such a foreign concept. I'm going to look at, right? But if I start to explain what I do, he ain't going to get it.
Yeah.
Right? And this is true for all of us.
Yeah. And that is true, because like my brother tried to talk to me about their jobs. I have no idea what they're talking about. And to them, it's real simple, and vice versa. I talk about what I do, and they have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and you could even talk about how what a lot of people would look at as being one of the least technical maybe things. I think we used to think so. I think today everybody understands physical fitness is actually a huge art and science, right? Yeah. But in your mind, on one hand, you're thinking, lift a heavy item up, put heavy item down. How hard can this be, right? But then when you start talking about it, you start getting into like the correct forms and the movements and the macros and all the rest of it. I don't understand what you're talking about.
A lot of people fall off there.
No, just why I look the way I do, you look the way you do.
Fair enough. And then, I think another component of the planning is just a broad combination of every other episode that we've done, and probably every episode we will do. So like looking at things like the Roth conversions and being able to manipulate your taxes and retirement with that.
Yeah, because this couple that came in, do they have enough money that they don't need to do anything? Absolutely. And I even told them that's one of their biggest challenges. You have so much money compared to what you're spending, and due to your age, there's nothing that's going to hurt you. So is it really worth, are you going to take the time to come in and learn how we could take the $3 million of NVIDIA you bought at $5 a share that's now whatever crazy number.
Yeah, getting close to 200,
and convert and get that out and get you out from under the capital gains tax that's sitting on it? Or are you going to take the time to come in and learn how to get the remaining couple, like literally out of $9 million, it was like 200,000 left in IRAs. It doesn't matter if we roll that into a Roth and save you the taxes on it when it's 200 grand out of $9 million.
Yeah.
No. Right. And so they're just, but personally, I think little hinges swing big doors. And the more fine-tuned and the more efficient you can make your plan, the more prepared you are for things that I promise you can't see coming, right? And so while it could look like no matter what happens, they're bulletproof, why not still take the time? I mean, you're retired. What else are you going to do?
Fair enough.
That's a joke. Take the time to even fine-tune it even further. Make sure all those beneficiary things are buttoned up. Make sure that you've eliminated as much of the taxes as possible. Like why unnecessarily have your spouse and your children pay more in taxes than what they need to?
Exactly.
Just because you got a bunch of money. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. So we're kind of talking about the planning, which is kind of a long-term game. What can people do like right now to start? Like start the planning process, or like what's the first things they should be paying attention to?
Well, the very first thing I would do is I'd make a list of all my accounts. And then I would go look at all the beneficiary designations in all of them. And I'm talking my bank accounts, my cars, my checking account, my brokerage account, my retirement accounts, my 401k, my work. And I would make sure that all that is correct.
Yeah.
And that's really the number one thing that I would do first. And then I would make sure that there's some kind of platform that my spouse and I have access to that ties everything together. So we provide Alpha Navigator to everybody. One of the beautiful things about that is we also provide something called Vanilla, which if you don't have a trust, a will, powers of attorney, all that, it'll build it out for you. But then even more importantly, it'll either update that or you can take the ones you already have and put it in, and it will go through it to make sure that it's all up to date. Because so many people make estate plan documents, and they go in a drawer, and a decade later, laws have changed, and none of their documents have been changed. No, I've never heard of an estate planning law firm calling somebody up to let them know, the one big beautiful bill just passed, and that's going to affect these parts of your trust, and we need to bring it in, and we need to edit that, and we need to restate it for you. By the way, since we built it for you last time, charged you $7,500. This is all on the house.
Yeah, probably not.
Never heard anybody doing that. But what's cool with this platform that we use is it will do that. And so if you had a platform like Alpha Navigator that tied all your stuff together, you made sure all your beneficiaries designations were correct, and you had your estate plan and trust and all that stuff set up somewhere that can be updated as changes come, I think you'd be in a rock solid position.
I think so. I think that's a great starting point for everyone.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go hop on a meeting.
Sweet.
All right.
All right. Well,
until next time, this is Elliot.
Nathaniel.
Signing off.